Hi, we'll begin the live streaming in about 8 minutes. Hi, I'm Jeff Gaisley, and this is the first streaming video that we've done online, so hopefully we won't make too many mistakes. I'm a psychotherapist, and I've been in the field for 40 years, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of you have. From what I understand, you just write in a question in the chat function, and I'll try to go ahead and answer you. Evidently, there was problems of a technological level, and it seems like there still is. If any of you can hear me out there, feel free to throw out a question or a comment. I'm still not sure this is working quite the way it's supposed to. So I've just been instructed by the powers that be that we're having a little bit of technical difficulty, but I'll let you know a little bit more about myself and my practice. I started in the field of psychology about 40 years ago, have worked with a number of different populations over the years, both inpatient and outpatient, and have been in private practice since the mid-80s. I have a number of different specialties: chemical dependence, marriage and family, kids, general psychiatric, and then a special emphasis in alternative care, things like hypnosis, EMDR, and especially energy psychology, which is fascinating. Be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Evidently, you just write a note in the chat section and ask the question, and I'll be happy to answer it if I can. My practice is here in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have a couple of different websites. Asktheinternettherapist.com is an online counseling website. There are a number of mental health videos and hypnosis tapes that are available there, and a number of counselors throughout the United States that can take clients from really anywhere, which is an interesting concept. We started that website in 1998 and was one of the original online counseling services. We also have another website called add-care.com, and that is a full line of natural mental health supplements. And the Unfortunately, I think we're still having some technological difficulty. So we've been having some technical difficulty with the streaming, and we're checking it now. If any of you can hear me, do me a favor and say something in the chat. And Julio, it looks like you might be able to hear me. If you guys can hear me, if you have any questions where I can help you, either with a general question or with a specific question, I'd be happy to do so. I don't know if any of you heard my introduction, but my name is Jeff Gaisley. I've been a psychotherapist for 40 years. Been in private practice for the last 25 years. I tend to have a specialty in marital and family, in chemical dependence, trauma, general psychology, and do a lot of work with alternative care, so EMDR, hypnosis, and energy psychology. So Larry has asked a question about what I can do about ADHD, and let me explain that in some detail. ADHD is a particular condition that is hereditarily based. If one parent has ADD, you have a 60% chance of the children having it. And if two parents, it's 90. So it is huge. It doesn't go away. And it really can get in the way of your life, although it also adds some benefits. 30% of treatment is good discipline, exercise, general supplements, and mostly a protein diet, staying away from all simple carbs. And that'll help about 30%. However, 70% of treatment for ADHD is either a stimulant such as Ritalin, Adderall, or Vyvanse, or a natural supplement that I developed about 8 years ago for my granddaughter, and that is called AddCare. That's ADD-care.com. Both the stimulants and the natural supplement work for about 85% of the people. The neat thing about AddCare is it's natural, doesn't have any side effects, and you can take it after 4 o'clock. But the stimulants work exceptionally well too. And I hope that answered your question, Larry. If anyone else has a question, that would be terrific. Is that Alcira? Nice to hear from you. Do you have any kind of question that I can help you with? So the question that Larry has is, what about stress? What are your suggestions? So stress is a huge general question. There's physical stress, there's mental and emotional stress, and then there's distress about any stress that you have. And there's a lot of different things that you can do for it. I would look for a multi-faceted approach. If you get good exercise, if you do relaxation skills, if you stay away from simple carbs and eat very, very healthy, those are all fantastic. But I also think it's incredibly important to do some kind of self-disciplinary activity that allows you to really calm the sympathetic nervous system, which is the part of our body that gets stressful when we think that there's something of an emergency happening. And in modern life, there's almost always something that we react to like it's an emergency, whether it is or isn't. Meditation, hypnosis, yoga, and martial arts are probably my favorite. I think that would be incredibly helpful. Julio has asked something about EFT, so let me kind of explain that. There are two main parts of the brain. There's the conscious brain, which is about 8 to 15% of what we've got. That's the logical part. And most counseling is aimed at that part of the brain where you just simply talk your problems out and hope that that does it. Unfortunately, 85% of our brain is subconscious. And it's very hard to get into that part of the brain. The only three techniques that are really known is hypnosis, EMDR, and some form of energy psychology. And there are a number of different schools of energy psychology, and EFT, or emotional freedom technique, is one. So the body is made out of water and electricity, and in Chinese medicine, it's theorized that the different acupuncture meridians, or rivers of energy, have to run smoothly if you're going to feel at your best emotionally or physically. And when you have a trauma or stress, what happens is not only your brain reacts, but your body goes ahead and grabs tight, and that changes the meridians in your body and stresses them out. So when you think of a stressful episode, even if it's something that happened long ago, or if something in the present has tripped off something in the past, your body reacts like it did during the original trauma. EFT is a way to tap a number of acupressure points, and it immediately takes your body into homeostasis, which is balance, and relieves the body toxicity of that memory. So it's a fantastic technique for PTSD and any other psychological problem other than chemistry. So if you have an addiction, if you have PTSD, EFT is tremendously helpful. And the neat thing is that you can do that totally alone. There are a number of different YouTube videos. Some on my channel have EFT and shows you exactly what you can do to follow that. And there are a number of other ones on YouTube as well. It's the easiest and most effective self-technique that I know of. I do believe that NET is much more powerful and streamlined, but you have to have a practitioner that is trained in that particular technique to help you out. And hopefully, Julio, that answers your question. If you have anything more on that, let me know. If you guys have any other questions, let me know and be happy to try to answer them to you. The powers that be didn't let me know how long I'm going to be streaming, but I'll be happy to answer any of your questions as long as I have. And until I get up, let's see. So Julio again asked a question about that he understands the body reacts to a past trauma, and we can change that with EFT skills, and you're absolutely right, you can. The big thing is when a trauma occurs, we're supposed to feel something about it and go out of stress and out of homeostasis. But what happens is we want to process the information and expel the trauma. And you can do that by a number of means. You can talk about it. You can let yourself feel about it and express that feeling, either anger with exercise or crying with somebody or getting a hug. And very often that does it. But if the trauma is too great, what happens is it doesn't extinguish after you do that. It sticks in the body. And EFT or NET will go ahead and dislodge that toxicity and bring you back to balance quickly. It's amazingly quick. Larry wanted to know a little bit about hypnosis, and I'd be happy to go ahead and talk to you about that. So hypnosis is the oldest form of trying to get to the subconscious to find out both what is going on in the unconscious and how to relieve it easily. So again, the prefrontal cortex is about 8 to 15% of what we've got. That's right in the forehead, and all talk therapy is geared towards just that 8 to 15%. And the interesting thing is that the conscious mind doesn't necessarily know what the subconscious mind is feeling. And that subconscious mind is 85%. So in a real way, we don't know very much about ourselves. We think we do, we'd like to, but we really don't. And so you have to have some way of getting into that subconscious where negative messages out of the past has been stored. And so with hypnosis, what you do is you essentially speak in a pretty monotone voice and at a particular cadence that allows people to gradually seep away from the conscious mind and get into the subconscious mind. There are 4 brainwave states that correspond to different levels of consciousness. So you have beta, which you can see in an EEG, and that is detailed focus. Alpha waves are calming and general relaxation. Theta is even more calm, and that's actually hypnosis. And then delta is sleep, and that's a very slow wave. And we actually go through all 4 of those brainwave states when we wake up and when we go to sleep. So we go through hypnosis at least twice a day, very, very naturally. But we don't stay in that particular state very long. But if you have somebody who's running you through hypnosis, you can linger in that state longer. And it's been proven that a number of different things happen in that state. Number one, pain is less. Number two, your body relaxes completely and you're more able to take suggestions and follow them in that state. Now, that doesn't mean that if somebody says you're going to act like a chicken once they have you in a trance, that you're going to do that. We don't do things that we don't feel good about, that don't really match our moral code. But if there is a desire to feel better about yourself or to be able to access your deepest skills, giving suggestions when somebody is in a trance tends to increase the likelihood that that would happen. You also can ask the subconscious particular questions through what's called ideomotor responses. And basically what that means is you can ask the person or suggest to the person that a yes would be one finger raising up and two fingers would be no. And so you can simply, once you have somebody in hypnosis, ask them about something out of their past and find out what the subconscious thinks. And that's huge. It's more laborious than NET. NET is, again, part of energy psychology, and it uses manual muscle testing, which tests the electrical system in the body, and you can simply ask without putting somebody in a trance, which I think is really helpful. So Patricia asked, is there any protocol for relief of anxiety without medication? And there's a number of different kinds of protocols. The first thing that I'd look at is you want to do things as naturally as possible. So we tend to live in a very, very stressful world where we don't get enough sleep, we don't get enough exercise, we don't eat well enough. And if you do those things, your body is going to stay anxious no matter really what you do. But there are a number of things that you can do with natural supplements to help that out. One of those is GABA. And so GABA is an amino acid that tends to work on the GABA neurotransmitter, and that is a regular brain chemical that the body produces that slows the neurofiring, and that basically calms you down. So we have a lot of different chemicals in our brain, and a lot of them are actually produced in the gut. And if those chemicals are in balance, we're in the best emotional and psychological position that we can get in. But a lot of people are out of balance either because of the stress they have or what they eat or just simply their particular heredity. So GABA will help calm that neurofiring and calm people down. 5-HTP will also calm serotonin down, and that will help. Valerian root will help. Kava kava will help. And the one that I like best is a natural substance that we formulated at AdCare called AdCalm. It's a natural homeopathic blend that turns on the prefrontal cortex and increases all of the neurotransmitters and helps very, very much with serotonin and GABA. There's GABA that's included in there, there's 5-HTP, and there's glycine and that's helpful as well. Got a message from Larry, and Larry, it would be great to go ahead and try hypnosis throughout the day. There's a number of different hypnosis MP3s or CDs on the Ask the Internet Therapist website. I would also do EFT as a way to kind of calm yourself down during the day. It's a great, easy 2-minute stress reduction technique. I had a question about Asperger's syndrome or giftedness, which is an interesting question in general. So almost every condition that you have, no matter what it is, physical or emotional, very often has a negative reaction. But when you have a negative reaction, usually you have a positive reaction on the other side. And the way I like to think of emotional problems is to try to fix whatever is negative about a condition and leave the positive one. So oftentimes with Asperger's is on the autistic spectrum, which is a series of conditions like ADD, autism, and Asperger's. And it's not well understood. It's only beginning to be understood these days. But what tends to happen is people with Asperger's often lack what's called enough mirror cells. And mirror cells are cells that we have, especially with primates, that recognize in other people similarity to ourselves. So if a person yawns, we often yawn because of our mirror cells. We see in that other person similarity, and we tend to act in an empathetic way. Oftentimes people with Asperger's seem to be locked in their head more. They're not as expressive with other people. So to give you an example, I had a young boy about 13 who had Asperger's. And one of the interesting things about the condition is they have a phenomenal memory. And what they tend to get obsessed with different things, and you never can tell what that's going to be. And this particular boy's obsession was the Three Stooges. And he would come into a session, he would sit down, and without even saying something, he would start out with, "And Mo said," and then he would, from memory, give me the entire dialogue that happened in that last TV show without a break and without looking for anything that I said to him. And so we spent probably about a month teaching him about greetings and segues. So I had him practice saying, "Hi, Jeff. I'm hoping your week was good. I had a good week, and I was able to watch the Three Stooges, and I saw an interesting episode," and then he could go ahead and repeat the entire series, and he would do it flawlessly. So that sounds, of course, incredibly handicapping for somebody, and it would be. But there are tons of people with Asperger's who are absolutely brilliant. Bill Gates is one of those people who has a slight touch of Asperger's. Albert Einstein had a pretty significant type of Asperger's, but they were pretty brilliant. So it's a fascinating condition. And if there's any other questions I can answer for you guys, let me know. It's a question from Twitter, and it's about, again, the autistic spectrum disorder. Basically asking, how do you know if somebody has it? It's a very, very difficult diagnosis to make. And it's one that you don't want to make really quick because a lot of the symptoms of ADD, Asperger's, autism blend together. They're very, very similar. So you want to really watch somebody for a long period of time. And what I tend to look at is, do they look me in the eye? And if they're able to, probably they aren't Asperger's. They might be. It's not enough. You don't want to make a diagnosis based on one symptom or one lack of symptom. But if I have somebody who is not looking at me in the eye, who seems to have very few friends, who doesn't have a communication style where it's 50-50 so that they're really talking, but instead just doing a monologue, that would make me wonder. And then, is there an obsession to one or two particular areas, and do they tend to stay focused on that? I had one client years ago who had Asperger's, and what they would do is they had memorized all the Doors music and lyrics backwards. And that is odd. That's not something that most people would do. And that certainly would make you wonder if it's autism spectrum disorder or autistic spectrum disorder, and whether it was Asperger's. Now, generally, with autism per se, you don't get the obsessional stuff that you get with Asperger's. And that's one of the differences that I would look at. There also has been a real controversy lately as to whether the whole autistic spectrum disorder is becoming more prevalent and what might that be due to. Some people think that we're just getting much better at understanding it and studying it and recognizing it. And other people wonder if our environment and what we eat and some of the toxins in the environment is making it more likely. That's beyond my expertise with that. I usually am just working on the actual treatment of. Any other questions that you folks have? Until something else comes up, I'm going to explain again kind of what my background is. I've been a psychotherapist for 40 years, have worked in hospitals and in private settings, and have a number of different specialties, chemical dependence, marriage and family, general psychiatric. Got a question again from Julio about what can you do to maintain good mental health? So the thing that you want to look at, there's a this is out of chemical dependence theory. If somebody has been addicted, Usually their life is in some ways out of balance. In general, if our balance is good, we don't usually have very many problems unless we have some kind of hereditary condition. So one of the things I'd look at is um, if you eat well, not a lot of processed foods, a lot of water, good protein, staying away from simple carbs, doing regular general supplements and vitamins, getting enough exercise, that takes care of the physical component. So if you think of it as a big circle with different areas in it, that would be exceptionally helpful. The mental component is important as well. If you're not learning something in life and not exercising the brain, the neuroplasticity of the brain begins to impede. And essentially you get older before your time. So if you do the same thing over and over again, you're not exercising your neurons to your best ability. Grab something new, try to learn it. The emotional section is another really important part of general overall health. If you're feeling angry or sad or scared, and you hold that in, your entire body and your mental faculty is going to go out of balance. So it's important to be able to communicate, to express your feelings, and that would be both in the primitive area, the back parts of the brain, so you might have to express it symbolically by doing some kickboxing, thinking of the person you're angry at. As long as you're not doing it to that person, you're on safe ground. But then it's important to talk with that particular person and let them know how you feel. Another huge part is the whole area of spirituality. And I don't care if it's a particular religion, but some belief that there's some meaning in life that gives you some hope and something that is outside of you, somewhat greater than you. The social aspect is also really important. If you have good friends, if you have good family relationships or a partner, that is extremely helpful. And then your volitional area. And volitional means your belief that you have some power to act on your environment and you can make an effect. And if you feel that you can, then you're going to feel a whole lot better about you. If not, the tendency is to give up hope pretty quickly. So that's what I would look at in terms of general health. Got a question from Diana about the AdCare products and whether they're only for ADD. So let me speak to that in some detail. I discovered the original AdCare about 8 or 9 years ago. I had been specializing in ADD for probably about 25 years, and it had good luck with stimulants. But when my granddaughter developed ADD, I knew that given the way that her mother was, she was not going to allow me to use traditional meds. But when I tested everything out there in the environment, there was nothing that I could find. There's a particular muscle test that I have that can confirm whether ADD is there or not. But I went through a number of homeopathic elements, supplements, and finally found some that I thought would work. So I tested it with one of my clients who had already been stabilized on Adderall and had a good result. And eventually we thought that we had matched what Adderall did. So we went over to the Amen Clinic and went to head-to-head trials. with brain imaging scans, and we met or beat Adderall in most indices, which was remarkable, and it was the only thing that I was looking to do. But on one of the second scans, what we realized is that we were not only adding dopamine to the prefrontal cortex, which is the biggest part of where ADD is located, but we were also raising all the neurotransmitters, the brain chemicals, and in a pretty even way. So we knew that we could take the basic formula for ADD and we could modify it and come up with an entire suite of natural mental health supplements. So for ADD, just regular ADD, there are a number of different products that AdCare provides. There's AdCare Original, which is a capsule, has a little bit of L-tyrosine and GABA, as long as the proprietary homeopathic blend, and that's in all AdCare products. Then we found an herb called Bacopa monnieri, which adds about 15% more focusing. So we made a capsule with that in it as well. Both of those also come in liquid. So AdCare Pure Liquid, AdCare with Bacopa Liquid. And eventually we were able to do a longer acting AdCare. So the 4 that I just mentioned would all work for regular ADD or ADHD. And it would last for about 5.5 hours. You take it about 3 times a day. The AdCare SR is essentially AdCare Original with a long-acting natural gum that slows the progression and assimilation of the AdCare. And that lasts between 7 to 9 hours. But we were then able to take the homeopathic blend, add a few more other elements into it, and come up with both the with the capsules Obsess Care, which is terrific for people who have OCD symptoms or for over-focused ADD. It's a particular kind of ADD where you're both distracted and compulsive. Then we have for limbic ADD, which is depression and ADD, a capsule called Mood Care. But interestingly enough, that works even better than just St. John's wort and 5-HTP. Both of those components are in that. So for general depression, if you want something natural, Mood Care is really helpful. We also did Add Calm, and that capsule helps both anxious ADD and just a general natural tranquilizer. So instead of taking something like Xanax that would load you up, Add Calm will tend to calm you down naturally. And for regular memory, we have a supplement called Add Memory that is very, very helpful. We added L-taurine and phosphatidylserine to that, and phosphatidylserine has been shown to help Alzheimer's after about 3 months. In a moderate fashion, it certainly isn't something that's going to turn it around completely, but very helpful. So that's the complete line of supplements on AdCare. Somebody else, let's see, got another question. So Eli had a question about how do you stay focused at work? So one of the things that's really interesting is some of the scientific studies has delineated that we can stay focused for about 20-minute stops. That's as good as we get. And then what's really helpful is if you take about a 5 or 10 minute break do a little bit of deep breathing, do some jumping jacks, anything to move blood to the brain, and that often helps you go ahead and pop up. Eating small meals, mostly of protein, throughout the day instead of large meals will help as well. Making sure that you are careful not to take too much caffeine or too much simple carbs will help. And then certainly add memory, and a lot of water throughout the day will also help with general focus when you're working. And evidently that is our last question. Thank you all for coming.